Welcome to our Farm to School video series by Common Roots. Today we're here at a sugar bush in Vermont, in Waterbury, Vermont, where we're at the very beginning of the sap flow season. This time of year, when it's really warm during the day and cold at night, that pressure of the temperature change is pushing the sap up from the roots and out so we can collect it and bring it back to sugar houses to boil it down into maple syrup, the maple syrup that we all look forward to and love. Vermont has been doing this tradition for a very long time. And there are people, like the ones we're going to meet in this video, who have really integrated their lives and families into the sugar bush, where the maple trees live and give to us each season. I'm so excited to meet the sugarers and to try some of that maple syrup. I can hear them inside now. Let's go meet them.
The mystery of how maple trees gift us with sap in the spring is one that has been expressed through a multitude of cultural understandings. Though these might differ, depending on time and place, each carries a unique wisdom that sweetens our appreciation for this wild spring tonic of the sap moon. So here we are, around the time of the spring equinox, which the Abenaki would have called the maple moon or the sap moon. But I want you to know that this sugaring season started way back in the summer, the year before. So let's take an imaginary journey back into the lush sugar bush during the summertime. The leaves in the canopy are full and green and vibrant. And the tree has actively been making sunshine turn into necessary food. Now the fall is approaching, the leaves are falling, and there's no longer any food production happening. Throughout the winter, the food is not needed for the tree. So all that excess, abundant nourishment has been channeled down the tree into the root cellar. Now you may know, and possibly be curious, about how the tree delivers food. So inside that protective outer bark of every tree are tiny little channels. They are straw-like and clustered close to each other, and that's how the nutrients of the tree are delivered. Fast forward to spring. Here we are. The tree is receiving a message that nutrients need to be moved around. There are leaves that we cannot see, tiny miniature leaves encased in the tree buds, smaller than your pinky fingernail. Yet the tree is receiving messages that it needs to nourish those tiny miniature leaves. So what happens now is that the tree receives this message and gets ready to deliver a nutrient package. However, the only thing stored in the root cellar is mature food. That is not the right formula for young leaves. They need a baby formula. So, amazingly, as nature has it, the landscape is covered with melting snow or perhaps even a rainfall. With that nutrient, the moisture from the snow or the rain is mixed together. And that is what is sent up those same channels, this time being directed up to the tree canopy. Now, the buds will open their protective sheet, and all those tiny miniature leaves will begin growing and expanding and flourishing. If you haven't guessed by now, and perhaps you have, all of that stored energy will remain in the root cellar. Nature's amazing. The cycle of birth and death and recycling happens and nourishes both the sugar bush and the humans and the animals of the forest in such a perfect way.
Maple syrup is such a sweet gift that we receive from our landscape. It's only in this little part of the world that maple trees grow. So here, each spring, we're able to receive the first gift of the spring, the maple syrup. Maple syrup is really sweet and delicious, but unlike other sugars, it has a lot of things inside of it that are good for us. We can call it soil magic or minerals. Minerals could be a word that you've heard before because we talk about vitamins and minerals both being important parts of our diet. Minerals are, if we can imagine them, as little crystal medicine that lives in the soil. I like to think of vitamins as being the color and the flavor of our food, whereas minerals are straight from the soil and they were pushed into our food from the plant itself. Some of the minerals in maple syrup are calcium, manganese, and magnesium. Calcium we've talked about before as being really good for our bones and our muscles, our structure. Magnesium is in almost every single cell in our body and is really important for almost all of the processes that our body goes through to stay healthy, like creating energy and feeling healthy and happy. Manganese is really good for our brain, really good to help us remember the things that we learn in school and the things that we do throughout our day. All of that is really important for our bodies to stay happy and healthy. So we're really lucky that maple syrup can be so sweet and delicious and also give us those important minerals. Today we're here inside of the Woodard Sugar House in the Waterbury Center. Up here is Henry, who's been here a long time. I'm going to ask him some questions about sugaring. Hi, Henry.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, really good. How are you?
Good. So walking around here, I have a couple questions. So there's a lot of sap behind us right now. I'm wondering how many trees that you had to tap to get this much sap, and how much sap do you need to make just 1 gallon of maple syrup?
So to get the amount of syrup that we have kind of currently behind us, we have 300 taps up there. It'd be nice to have more, but generally speaking, you need at least 300 gallons or so to kind of make the day worth it, to make the boil worth it. Otherwise, you're just not going to make very much. But as far as the amount it takes to make a gallon, it's about 40 to 1. At the start, makes it a little confusing, but at the start, it's about 150 to 1 just to get the first draw. And then after that, you have, some half syrup in this pan already. And then it only takes about 40 to 1 from that point on.
So that's 40 gallons of sap makes just 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Yeah.
That's quite the process.
It is, it's a lot.
But it's worth it.
It is worth it, yeah.
How much land are you on here?
Well, the farm is 200 acres, but the sugar bush area is probably only about 15 to 20. But there is more beyond that, like if I wanted to do more. There is more maple trees up there that are not tapped, that are screaming out to be tapped, but all in good time.
And your family has been here for a while.
They have, yeah.
How long have they been here?
Over a century. My great-grandfather built, as my dad likes to say, the first cement-floored sugar house in Vermont, which I think it's true, but who knows? But yeah, we've been here since the late 1800s.
Wow. So you've been doing this your whole life?
Well, I've been farming pretty much my whole life, yeah, but I've only been sugaring for about 4 years now.
Nice.
You don't count the year or two when, as a toddler. But
what's your favorite part of sugaring season?
It's got to be the boiling. I mean, just being in here for 10 to 12 hours a day, kind of sweating it all out, but at the same time enjoying every minute of it, and having it be part of my blood. I think that's a huge part of it. A great grandfather did it, and I kind of want to be like him, to be honest. I don't want to divert far away from how he did it.
You guys do it differently.
We try, yeah. There's not many people who kind of have kept the old-fashioned way of doing it. And,
right.
Yeah.
So here they still use buckets on taps. How do you carry all of those?
Well, no, we don't exactly use. But there's a couple of new things for quality of life, but we don't use like oil.
Okay.
We don't use reverse osmosis.
Yeah.
We do use the filter press and the vacuum just because you need a filter press to bottle and glass. And the vacuum just makes life so much easier. So, besides those two minor things, pretty much everything else I do like my grandfather did back in, 100 years ago or whatever.
That's really special.
So yeah.
So you don't use oil here, you use a wood fire to heat up your sap. Do you think that changes the quality of the syrup?
Everybody's going to tell you different depending on what they use and how long they've been doing it. I believe it does.
Yeah.
It's such, it's the fuel type that you're using, so it only makes sense that it would make it would make a change in the taste, especially when it's that close to it. It's you don't get the smoky flavor. I feel like you don't get the wood-fired kind of naturalness to it almost when you're boiling with oil. We don't boil with oil. I like to say to my friends, you know.
This wood, I imagine, is from this land too.
It is. It is. It's all up from the woods here.
Yeah, so it's a very closed system.
Yep.
You get what you can from the landscape you're on.
Right, exactly.
I'd love to taste some.
Yes, there is. I have some right here, actually. Almost forgot about it there, but
Thank you.
there you are. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, it looks so golden.
This is right on the cusp of golden delicate.
Oh, wow.
And so it's basically the highest grade you can make right now. They used to have 4 grades and they changed it, which is kind of interesting. But
Yeah, is it letters now, or is it?
no,
the
it used to be
color?
letters. Now it's names basically. But it used to be grade A, grade B.
Right.
The only one that had a name was Fancy.
Right.
And they actually took Fancy out, probably because it's difficult to make,
Yeah.
and kind of just left the other 3. So that's what we got to work with now.
Right.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for letting me try this delicious syrup and having us here in your land.
Of course, my pleasure. Yeah,
I'm really excited to go see it with Joanne.
yeah. Well, the trees are up there. So.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Likewise.
Kaylee spent some time talking about how to identify maple trees, and it's hard to do with the bark because as the tree matures, the bark changes its form and color a little bit too. Great way to identify a sugar maple tree is by the leaf. That U-shaped area right here between the lobes is a guaranteed sugar maple, and often around the base of a tree in the forest in the early spring and winter months, there's plenty of leaf litter from the fall. So what I like to do is, now that I'm pretty sure this is a maple tree, I want to know if it's available for tapping. So I usually take my binoculars, I take a good look way up in the crown of the tree, up in the canopy, and what I'm looking for are these buds. Want to make sure that the tree is swelling open with life and is able to be tapped and gathered from. So I'll take a look. And sure enough, there's some bud formation swelling up there. So what I will do next is determine how many buckets can I hang on a tree. A 1-bucket tree is going to be determined by whether or not my hands fit firmly around and I can hug the tree and join my hands together. So it looks a little bit like this. Sure enough, this tree, as you can see, is good for 1 bucket. For a double bucket tree, what I need to do is do the same thing. I need to hug the tree, and if my hands don't nearly meet at all, then that tree is ready for double bucket hung. Otherwise, if Kaylee and I were both to reach our arms around in one huge, enormous hug, and we couldn't wrap our hands together around that tree, that's a mother tree. So the mother trees, we don't tap. They have a very significant job keeping the forest ecosystem vibrant. For example, here we have leaves clinging as if they're crinkle-cut potato chips. That's the beech tree. The mother tree will also feed the trees behind me, the black birches, as well as any spruce or hemlock in this forest. Any pine tree will be nurtured and nourished by the mother trees. So we leave them to do their very important job in the forest. So now it's your job. Get ready, get out into the sugar bush, hug some trees, and figure out how many buckets you can hang, and get into the activity of the Vermont tradition of sugaring in spring.
Hey friends! Boy, does our sap get flowing in the springtime. So today we're going to start with a little maple-inspired yoga to stretch out our bodies. Starting out in a low position, kneeling on the ground, we're going to reach our hands up towards the sky. Close your eyes. Imagine the sun is beating down on your hands and you can feel the warmth. Take a deep breath here, breathing in and out. Lowering your hands down to the floor, we're going to make our way up to a standing position. Tuck your toes, slowly making your way up. Roll your back. Hands are together, palms at the heart. Find your balance on one foot, and we're gonna make our way into bird pose. Once you have your balance here, we're gonna bend our body forward, reaching your foot out behind you. You can either stay here or reach your hands out to the side, pretend you're a bird soaring above the forest. All of a sudden, we spot a sugar maple tree. Landing our foot back down on the ground, hands back to our heart. We're going to find our way into tree pose. So finding your balance on your other foot now, lift your knee up here. And you can either stay in this position, or if you'd like a little more of a challenge, you could place your foot on your upper thigh. Maybe your tree is swaying in the wind a little bit. Reach your hands out to the side to make strong branches for your bird to land on. Take one deep breath here, breathing in and out. The sap starts to flow in the trunk, and all of a sudden a sugar maker walks by and taps our trunk. Lowering your foot to the ground, we're gonna tap our foot 3 times. 1, 2, 3. The sap begins to flow, so we gotta catch it with our buckets, making a big bucket with your hands. Squatting down to the ground. Balance on your toes here. Our bucket's filling up with sap, getting heavier and heavier and heavier until it's full. And we gotta place it over the fire. So kneeling down now. Bucket goes over the fire. And while it boils, we'll do a little stretch to one side and another stretch to the other side. The fire's getting a little low, so we gotta stoke it a little bit, rubbing the palms of your hands together. Feel the heat. Really fast. And then slowing down, palms back at the heart. We're going to give some gratitude to the sugar makers for collecting all of that sap, and the forest for supporting those strong sugar maple trees. So thanks so much. Now that we're all stretched out and ready to go, let's head to the kitchen and get cooking. We'll see you soon. Hi everyone, I'm Lauren, and today we're going to make a delicious creation involving a bit of our treasured maple syrup. As we work together in the kitchen today, I wanted to share a few of the traditional practices the Abenaki people use while enjoying their maple syrup. First thing, the Abenaki women are responsible for initiating the long-standing traditions of sugaring in Vermont. They carried the leadership role of food providing and growing. They were the medicine gatherers and the sugar makers in the earliest days of the tribe. Nowadays, families work together to bring in the sap, and the women wisely figured out that the sugar bush was a source of nourishment and developed the methods used to harvest, cook down the sap in clay pots, and boil away the water from the sap to condense out the sugars. The Abenaki sugared the sap down using 2 methods. The first was letting the sap turn into a thick, dark goo, which froze when dropped on the snow, making it easy to store. The second method was to continue to boil the sap until it turned into a crystallized sugar, which was also easy to preserve. Maple sugar was then used to sweeten water while cooking winter stews that were lacking flavor and texture, and the sugar was also used to sweeten medicines. Today we're going to make a recipe that's a bit more modernized from what the Abenaki people might have traditionally made, but still features the maple syrup that we celebrate and appreciate as an Abenaki gift. On the menu today is a butternut squash fritter. First, we're gonna start by peeling and grating our butternut squash. Now, although butternut squash is not seasonal in the springtime right now, and butternut is not an indigenous variety, there were other Abenaki squashes that were grown, including the pumpkins we all love. So I'm gonna finish grating my butternut. We're only making a single serving today, but you can definitely double this recipe if you're sharing your fritters with a friend. So I only grated what I'm gonna be using for this recipe. I'm gonna safely hold my knife with one hand, firmly hold my butternut with the other, and I'm gonna cut off the grated or peeled part. Now we're gonna prepare our cut butternut squash. First, I'm going to cut the other end off that's not been peeled. There we go. And then, resting the butternut on a flat side, I'm going to cut it in half again to get a longer flat side so we can safely cut it into a chunk that I can hold with my hands while we're grating. Great. Now I'm gonna rest this on its flat side, and I'm gonna cut it in half again. Now this seems like a good size I can start grating with. We're going to use our grater right over here. And we're going to grate our butternut squash until we have about a half a cup. Being careful to watch your fingers as you get closer to the grater. All right, let's see how it looks. Oh, that looks like about enough. I'll get my mixing bowl, and we're gonna add our half a cup of grated squash to our mixing bowl. Next up, we're gonna make our chia seed egg, which is a great substitute for eggs if you do have a sensitivity. They're also high in fiber and protein. So we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of chia seeds to a bowl, and we're gonna add 3 teaspoons of water. And what happens, it's totally crazy. They're going to start to puff up and form this jelly-like consistency, kind of like an egg. It takes a few minutes for it to happen. There's 3. So we're gonna set these aside for a minute while we add our other ingredients, and we'll check on them in a few. Back to our grated butternut squash. We're gonna add, let's see, we're gonna start with our corn flour, another Abenaki food gift, with 1 heaping teaspoon of corn flour. Next, we're gonna add a pinch of cinnamon. And then we're gonna add a pinch of salt, which salt was later traded by Abenaki people with other tribal members who lived closer to the sea. Next up, we're gonna add our beloved maple syrup with 1 teaspoon of it. Ooh, that looks good. All right. I think we should check back on our chia seeds. Let's see how they changed. So, give it a little stir. And if you can tell, sometimes they need a few more minutes to absorb, but they're starting to look a little bit gloppy or jelly-like. I think this is gonna be the perfect texture to hold all of our dry ingredients together. So I'm gonna add these in to the rest of the mixture. And now it's time to combine. So adding all of our ingredients, combining it together. Let's see how it looks. All right. I think those chia seeds are gonna hold our mixture together nicely. So now we're ready to form our mixture into our fritters. So, taking a small scoop in your hand, probably a little more, I think this will make about 2 or 3 small fritters. So we're gonna take a small scoop in our hands, and then we're gonna firmly press down so that everything is well compacted into a nice little patty. Now I think these will be ready to add to our pan once we've got all three. And then we'll start heating our oil. So, I've got one more. That looks good. And 3. All right. Before we get cooking, I'm gonna clear off my board and put some scraps in the compost. So I'll clear this off. All right, looking good. Next, we're gonna heat our pan over medium heat with a little bit of olive oil. So I'm gonna turn this on. Medium heat. We're gonna get our olive oil. The Abenaki people did not have olive oil as a local ingredient. They most likely used animal fat when cooking while oil was needed. But today we're gonna use a little bit of olive oil. So I'll put that on here. Great. Now once we let this heat for a minute, we're gonna check and see if our oil moves like water. And if it does, you know it's hot enough and it's ready to add our fritters. I think it's getting ready. So, next up, I'm gonna make sure this oil is evenly spread. And then you're gonna want to place your fritters furthest away from you in the pan, just in case a little bit of oil splatters up. Listen to that sizzle. Oh. You're gonna cook these on both sides for 2 to 3 minutes, waiting until you see the edges get a little bit crispy and golden brown. All right. So carefully, I think we're ready to flip. Taking my spatula. Ooh, I think we need a little more time. That one seemed like there's a little bit of crispiness, but I'm gonna test the next 2 and see if we need another minute. All right, let's give this a go. All right. Ooh, that looks good. That is the color you're looking for. A little golden brown, crispy on the edges. So we're gonna let these cook for another 2 to 3 minutes on this side, and then we're ready to serve. We made these fritters in Farm to School a few weeks ago, and every student in every class ate the fritter and said to me, "Lauren, I think I want seconds." These will be a hit at home. All right, let's give them a flip. Ooh, those look good. All right, I think we're ready to serve. I'm gonna turn my heat off. Our fritters are looking good, so we're ready to serve. I'm gonna get my serving plate. And today, I think I'm just gonna add a little extra drizzle of maple syrup on top as a sweet treat. But if you're looking to make these fritters as more of a meal, these would go really great next to a fried egg for breakfast, or maybe a dollop of plain Greek yogurt on top, or even some fresh avocado. So let's get our syrup for today. Ooh, that looks great. I'm ready to eat. Thanks so much for following along today. I'm so glad we got to celebrate the maple sap flow tradition and cook a healthy treat together. And we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you
For this food, this glorious, glorious food. For the animals and the maples and the minerals and the sugarers who make it possible. Here's to the giving maples.
Here's to the sugar makers and the tradition in Vermont and the whole northeastern states. So remember, everyone, act like a forest and feed each other. A wild spring tonic is medicinal after a long, long winter. And come to commonroots.org for a full curriculum. See you next time.